Okay, in this video we are going to go over how to start making mugs or vase shapes. It's very similar in how we're going to bump out the inside to make a different shape. So you can either start out with either shape. You could start out with a ball of clay like this, or you could start out with something where you're kind of patting it together on the top, forming something more cone shaped. I'm gonna go in with the cone shaped one for this video. You want to have a pretty dry wheel surface. If you want to put down a little bit of water like that, you can to help it stick. Sometimes that works, but when you're beginning, I usually just have you guys start with a dry wheel. So you're going to take your piece of clay, you're going to line it up with about the center, and then you're just going to take it and you're going to slam it down on the wheel. I usually then like to tap it a little bit just to make sure it's attached on. Give it a little wiggle like this, and if it's stuck, then you're in pretty good shape. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce some water into the clay. And you want to keep adding water as you're throwing. You want to make sure that your hands are wet and that the clay is wet. What I'm going to do for centering in this video is I'm going to show you guys how to cone. So coning is an easier way of centering for most people once you get the hang of it. So pretty much we're pushing all the clay together, and I have my hands resting on the splash pan and my forearms resting on my knees. So I'm going to bring it all the way up like that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my left hand here and I'm going to hold it against the side. And I want to keep it as still as I possibly can. I'm then going to take the meat of my hand over here and I'm going to slowly push down. And as I'm keeping my left hand still, that clay is going to push against it and it's going to center. So centering is getting all your clay nice and even. You're going to want that whenever you're throwing a form. This is step one. The better you center your clay, the easier time you're going to have when you go ahead and you open up the shape, when you form a bowl, because it's going to be nice and even to start out with. I like to scrape some of that extra clay off. You want to add a little bit more water. You always want to have a little sheen going on. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the center. So I kind of like my hands to almost glide towards the center. And I'm going to make a small hole. And you can see my hands are resting on top of each other. You want to remain really steady when you're doing this. And as you open it up, adding a little bit more water because the clay inside will be a little bit drier than what's on the outside. So I'm going to go down about 3/4 of the way so I have some room for trimming. I'm just going to smooth that out. And then I'm going to pull the clay towards me. So I want to stabilize it with my left hand. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm applying a bit of pressure, but I'm going to slow down my speed. And I'm just going to keep my hand nice and still and drag the clay out towards me. So now we have it opened up. Sometimes you'll get a little bump on the bottom. You could just go ahead and smooth that down. And if you feel like you didn't go down far enough, you could also push in again and just drag that clay out. Now, because the start of a mug is a cylindrical form, we don't want it to go out right away. So we're going to have to fight a little bit going against the centrifugal force of the wheel. When you're first starting out, you can pinch up the walls just by putting your thumbs in here if you want to, and slowly pulling up that way. Now that's not going to give you a really high pull, but it's easy when you're starting out to have, enough centering and enough balance. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you guys how I pull up the walls, and this is a pretty standard way. So I go ahead and I rest my left hand on the inside and my right hand on the outside. Now what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be pinching the clay together. I want to apply a lot of pressure towards the bottom, and I'm going to slow down my speed a little bit when I do this, and I'm going to push in. So I'm going to let you guys take a look. You could see that little bump of clay forming. And what I want to do is I want to take that bump and I want to disperse it throughout what I've created already. And that's going to make your form a little bit taller. In between every pull, you want to add a little bit of water and you want to go in and just compress the rim of it. And I like to start out, especially when I was beginning with pottery, going in for almost like a volcano shape. That's gonna help you a lot. So I'm pushing a lot more with my outside hand and just using my inside hand as a guide. Now in ceramics, once you can make a cylindrical form, you can pretty much make anything. So this is something to really practice. Once you get a handle on the wheel, maybe make a few bowls first. I'm gonna open this up a little bit now so I could fit my hand in. And you can see I have a lot of clay still at the bottom. When I'm making cylinders and I'm going to shape them, what I like to do is to make sure that I have a tall enough piece of clay, because I am going to go in and modify it, and the more that I push out, the shorter the form is going to become, because we are pushing out the clay and it's going to gradually, as we push it out, shorten because of the force that we're putting on it. So I'm going to do one more pull. And sometimes it gets a little wonky. That's okay. That's something I could go in and adjust at the end. Just going to push this together a little bit. Now I have a little extra clay down here, but I want to utilize that when I'm shaping my form. So this could be a beginner vase, but I am going to be making mugs out of these. What you're going to do now is, rather than using your outside hand, you're going to use your inside hand. So your outside hand now is more of the guide. And I'm going to start slowly pulling up the walls, but pushing out a little bit. And you could see that the bump started to form in my clay. I'm going to take a little bit more off, add a little bit more water, and I'm going to do one more pull. So I'm pulling up the clay, but I'm pushing out a lot with my outside hand. In order to get the mug shape you desire, you could go ahead and play around with it a little bit. I usually like to do something called coning. So I'll go in, I want to make sure my hands are really wet, and I'm going to slowly, having my wheel speed go a little bit slower too, push in a little bit with my hands. And then I'm just going to slowly flare it out a little bit. And when you're making any type of drinking vessel, you do want to consider the lip, so you want to make sure it's nice and smooth. You can go in and sand it a little bit later, but you don't want any sharp edges because it is going to be something that you're going to be putting your mouth up to, and you want to make sure that it's going to be nice and comfortable. I'm going to go in and I'm going to soak some of the water out. That's going to stop it from cracking or falling apart before you trim it. It's also going to make sure that everything inside is really nice and smooth. I then want to go in with a sponge on the outside, and I want to smooth that out a little bit. And then I'm just going to do some touch-ups. I want to touch up the rim, the top a little bit, round it off, make sure everything's how I want it. I'm then gonna go in with my wooden tool, and I usually like to use one that's shaped like this. So I'm going to hold it down, and I'm just gonna scrape some of the extra clay off. And then I'm gonna hold it this way, and I'm gonna scrape the clay off the bottom. Now this is gonna make it so much easier when we go in and trim these pieces, because you're gonna have a nice clean bottom to go ahead and add a foot. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and stop there. You're gonna add a little bit of water to the front. You're gonna grab your wire tool, make sure you wrap it around your hands. Keep your thumbs down flat on the wheel head so that you're not going to cut through your piece of pottery. And I'm just gonna slowly slide it under. The water is going to help to push the pot off of the wheel. Sometimes I like to do it twice just to make sure it's gonna glide off really nicely. Wipe off your hands a little bit, either on a towel or your apron. And then I'm just gonna slide it towards me, and I'm gonna go ahead and put it on a board. I'm gonna do a few other mug videos. It's really hard to throw and talk at the same time. I'm gonna do a few different ways of centering and opening up the clay. So I'm gonna stop this video and then go on to the next one.